Come with me on a journey to land at one of the most dangerous airports in the world. We'll be passing over the stunning scenery of the Himalayas, flying in a Cessna 172 operating close to its maximum ceiling. We'll be using Microsoft Flight Simulator 2023, set up in 4K with a realistic flight model. We'll be landing at Tenzing Airport, which is built in the middle of a mountain range and has a single short runway which ends with trees and a hillside. We have lots to see and do: scenery, local points of interest, flight dynamics and a challenging landing. So stay with me until the end. We have lots to cover, so let's get started. We are in Nepal in the middle of the Himalayas for this flight, starting at Lukla Airport. We'll be taking off and flying northeast to Tenzing-Hillary Airport. Here we are lined up on runway 02 in the middle of the Himalayas. We're going to execute a short field takeoff due to the length of the runway and the obstacles at the end. For short field takeoff, we will set 10 degrees of flap and use the toe brakes to hold the aircraft until we're at maximum revs. Once at maximum revs, the brakes will be released. I have set the barometric pressure, unset the parking brake and completed pre-flight checks. As we are rolling, the airspeed comes alive and we will aim to lift off slightly to the left of the end of the runway. At 60 knots, we rotate. We will circle the airfield a number of times to gain altitude, targeting around 70 knots for the climb out. The maximum ceiling for a Cessna 172 is around 13 to 15,000 feet. Lukla Airport is at 7,918 feet, so our 172 is a little sluggish in the climb compared to flying near sea level. The effective altitude on the aircraft is successfully modelled in 2023. For the 172, it is recommended not to cruise above 10,000 feet for long hauls. For this short flight, we are at the limits of this aircraft. Saying all this, later on there's a ridge sitting around 10,000 feet which we will need to clear to get into the valley where Tenzing-Hillary Airport is located. This is the highest we will need to go, as Tenzing Airport is at 9,334 feet. We are heading south initially to allow the aircraft to increase speed and build altitude. This area around the airport and to the south provides a better environment to do this. Heading north straight away leads us into tighter valleys, higher peaks and the potential for trouble. Climb performance and space to manoeuvre is reduced in the valleys of the Himalayas. As you can see, the environment and terrain is mountainous and tree covered, reducing the options for dealing with aircraft emergencies. So speed is increasing nicely, we're around 90 knots, and we're also climbing gradually. The increase in hikers and mountaineers have had a positive impact on the business opportunities in this area. On Google Maps, zooming in, you can see there are many hostels like the Shangri-La Guest House, the Happy House, Mountain Vibes, and also many monasteries and hospitals. Lukla Airport was built in 1976, and Sir Edmund Hillary later got involved in broadening the runway to accommodate twin otter aircraft. It also acts as an alternate to Tenzing-Hillary Airport if bad weather occurs. We've come around and are now heading north up the valley following its contours. We are using Orbx Scenery for the Himalayas in Central Asia, which improves the mesh and the building placement and quality. I have a number of other add-ons as well as the Orbx Scenery. I have added the Cessna 172 sound pack, which is especially good on takeoff. As you can see, I have also installed a different livery pack, which I hope you like. These items are from the marketplace. We're getting into the 9,000 feet range, and with the remaining cruise time, should be good to clear the ridge further along our route. Over to the left, the trail which leads to the airport is visible. We will see this path again as we near Tenzing Airport. The river along the valley is the Soul River and is bridged near the airport. As we climb out, we will take a close pass over Nepal's version of Bhutan's Tiger's Nest, the Tiwan Buddhist monastery of Solakumba. The monastery was founded in 1923 and is perched on these beautiful surrounding hills. In 2016, a gravel track was constructed, which means that the monastery can now be reached by a 30-minute drive by car from the airport. As we enter the cruise, we are just short of 10,000 feet. As the valley broadens, we can see the low point of the crestline far up on our right, which is our crossing point to the next stage of the flight. Mount Everest is in this range and is 29,000 feet high, the highest in the world. Tenzing Airport is the nearest to the peak and is named after the two mountaineers who conquered the peak first. It is also known as Lukla Airport. It is 40 miles from Everest Base Camp to the airport, which would take 9 to 12 days to walk due to the mountainous conditions. Tenzing-Hillary Airport has also got the name as the most dangerous airport in the world due to its location. It is located in the middle of mountains, as we will see, and has a significant slope. The runway is also very short at 1,729 feet. When planning a flight, preparation should be in place for a go-round situation on every landing. In most occasions, a go-around will not be required. As we get closer to the airport, we can see why go-arounds at Tenzing are extremely challenging, especially in the final stages of landing. As we approach the ridge, our altitude is sufficient to clear. Progressing over the ridge, the valley unfolds before us, and it is an impressive sight. Orbx in 2023 have done an excellent job representing the region, using a mixture of 3D maps for the most popular areas and 2D satellite imagery. Secondary school education in the valley can be found on our right at the Sri Taksindu Secondary School. And across the valley on the left is the Sri Dukunda Primary School. We will be shortly coming up on the Jude Kosi River, which we will be turning left at and then following the valley towards our final destination, the Tenzing Airport. In the news, we have seen the queues of people waiting to climb through the death zone to reach the peak of Everest. An expedition such as this can cost between £20,000 to £30,000 per person. This is lucrative business for the local economy. This can be seen in the number of lodges and hotels and restaurants, which we have seen already along the route. In this area, there are also some of the more traditional industries. For example, there's a goat cheese factory down to our right. The Tenzing-Hillary Airport is around 9,300 feet, so for the approach I want to be close to that altitude, as manoeuvring in this area is limited. On the right side of the valley you can see the Hiker's Trail, which is a continuation of the path we saw at the airport. This trail eventually reaches Everest Base Camp. Using this trail is the alternate method of reaching the base camp. We're now entering the approach and landing phase of the flight as we enter the valley, which will take us directly to Tenzing. The airport can just be seen on the shoulder of the hill as the valley widens to the northeast. In the real world, before a pilot can land at this airport, they must have completed at least 100 short takeoff and landing flights, known as stalls. Also, they must have 1 year of stall experience in Nepal and have completed 10 missions into Tenzing with a certified instructor before they can land at the airport alone. We are a couple of minutes out from landing, and this is where the nerves kick in. The plan is to go as wide to the left as possible to set up for a stable approach. The runway is to the northeast on 060 degrees. Altitude is good, we are approximately 700 feet off the start of the runway. As we look at the valley, we can see it's in summer, framed by the snow-capped mountains in the distance. We want to get the speed back by reducing the power and keep the attitude of the aircraft up until we are in the speed arc, and will then deploy the first stage of flap. Getting the speed back to around 70 knots and deploying the second stage of flap. Power is back on to arrest the descent. Putting the last stage of flap in to get the aircraft set up for a nice stable approach. To the left, another impressive valley. We're a little fast at 75 knots. The runway can be seen clearly now at our 3 o'clock. Turning into the final approach, Mount Everest, translated into the native Nepal and Tibetan languages, means Goddess Mother of the World. 4,000 people have climbed the mountain since Tenzing-Hillary. The weather today is perfect, clear visibility and light winds. As we approach, I aim to keep the numbers at the end of the runway at the same point on the canopy. Taking the power back, I'm going to use power to control altitude and aircraft attitude to control speed. And that's the balance we make on our final approach. Coming down nicely, not too low, as you can see there's a cliff edge at the start of the runway, a little off the centre line. Numbers coming up, cutting the power, and we are down. Let's see the landing again from an outside view. Putting the power back on to progress up the slope. Air traffic control can also be seen on the left. Progressing onto the apron to park up, flags on the buildings to our right to welcome our arrival. We'll clean up the aircraft by raising the flaps. I hope you enjoyed this thrilling flight and landing experience. If you have any feedback or suggestions for future flights, feel free to share them in the comments. Stay tuned for more exciting aviation videos as we explore the world together. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button and consider subscribing and hitting the bell icon for notifications. Thank you and take care.